Libra, justice will be served for something done behind your back. Libra, you were looking ahead. You were being who you always were. You were honoring your promises, taking care of what was placed in your hands, balancing what was your responsibility to balance. And yet something happened behind your back, not a blow you had anticipated, not a fight you could see coming. Something that settled silently in the blind spot of your gaze, exactly where you never thought you needed to look, because you were so focused on doing the right thing that you didn't imagine the problem could come from where it does. This is Libra's specific wound, and it's so specific that most Libras can't even name it. They just feel it. Have you ever felt that? That strange feeling of being overtaken by something that didn't come from the front, that confusion of looking back and not understanding how you didn't see it before. It's not stupidity, it's not carelessness. It's something that goes much deeper than that, and it has everything to do with how you were built on the inside. There is an invisible structure within Libra that most people never manage to see from the outside. It's not harmony. Everyone sees that. It's not elegance. That's also on the surface. What is invisible is the mechanism by which Libra reads the world. And this mechanism, however sophisticated, has a loophole that lies exactly where you least expect it. Libra doesn't naively assume that everyone is good. That would be too simplistic. What Libra does is something more subtle and much deeper. It assumes that others operate by the same code of honor that it itself carries. Because I care, others care. Because I respect, others respect. Because I refuse to act behind someone's back, others also refuse. It's not blind faith, it's self-projection. Libra reads the world through a mirror, and that mirror is so clear, so well-polished, so precise in its own image that the distortion of the other takes a long time to appear. You are not seeing others as they are. You are seeing the reflection of what you would never do. Imagine an architect designing a structure assuming all materials have the same strength as the one he would use. The design is beautiful. The logic is impeccable. The weight distribution is perfect. But at some point, where he placed a material he would never have chosen for himself, the structure will collapse, and it will collapse exactly there, in the place he trusted without checking, because his own internal reference told him it would hold. This is how the breach opens up within Libra relationships. Not all at once, not loudly, with the same silent persistence of water seeping through a crack you didn't even know existed. Drop by drop, week by week, sometimes month by month, what was done behind your back wasn't built in a day. It was installed in the small spaces you left open because they seemed too small to confront, the criticism that didn't deserve a response, the behavior you chose not to name aloud because naming it would make real what you were still trying to keep in the realm of misunderstanding. And it was precisely in that space, the space between what you perceived and what you chose not to see aloud, that it happened, that the problem found fertile ground. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose isn't about distrusting everyone. It's about something much more precise than that. How Libra can develop the ability to see the world for what it truly is, without losing the sensitivity that makes you who you are. Because the problem was never your generosity. The problem was using your own integrity as a lens to read others. And there's a huge difference between the two. You are now in a moment of recognition. Something within you has just named a pattern that has always been there, but never had a form. This is the exact moment. Not tomorrow, not when you have processed everything now. Because when the perception is still alive, still fresh, it has the power to change something real. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And while you still have this awareness active, has what was done behind your back changed how you trust people? Or has it changed how you see yourself? Leave your comments below that this was happening. Because as long as Libra doesn't name it, he can continue believing that it will resolve itself, that it will balance out, that the other person will realize it on their own and correct course. But there's something Libra rarely admits to themselves. Sometimes the harmony you maintain isn't real peace. It's a choice not to see what's already visible, because seeing would cost too much, because seeing would mean acting. And acting for Libra means breaking the balance you've worked so hard to build. There's a huge difference between not knowing and not wanting to know, and Libra knows this difference better than any other sign, but rarely uses it against itself. It's easier to slightly adjust the scales so that both sides appear equal than to admit that one of them is much heavier. Not because you're dishonest, because seeing the real imbalance would be unbearable at that specific moment. Because the real imbalance would require you to do something that goes against your deepest nature, to deliberately, consciously break the harmony, without the guarantee that the other person will understand. And Libra doesn't break harmony without a guarantee. Not when there's still an alternative, however small, not when it's still possible to maintain the apparent balance a little longer. That's why what's done behind your back has time to grow. Not because you're naive, not because you're weak, but because your internal architecture prioritizes balance above almost everything else. And sometimes that privilege costs you more than you realize when the bill comes due. Sometimes the artificial harmony that Libra constructs is so sophisticated that even outsiders can't see the crack. Because Libra isn't careless in this construction. It's meticulous, it's artistic, it's capable of maintaining an apparent balance with a skill bordering on the supernatural. The conversation flows, the atmosphere is pleasant. No one notices the tension underneath, and sometimes Libra doesn't notice it anymore either. The denial is so well constructed that it's genuine at the conscious level, while at some deeper level, the weight accumulates silently. And this is the cruelest paradox of this whole story. Libra was built to perceive imbalance. It senses when something is wrong before anyone around it. It has an antenna for injustice that works almost automatically when the subject is others. But when the imbalance is about itself, when the injustice is pointed inward, this antenna curiously fails. Not because Libra doesn't feel, but because feeling would imply having to do something with what was felt, and doing something with it would cost the balance it so cherishes. The painful question is this: if you already knew, even if on some very deep level, that what was being done behind your back was happening, and yet you didn't act, what were you protecting? The relationship? The image of harmony you had built? The version of the other person that you had chosen to believe? Or were you protecting yourself from the burden of having to acknowledge that what you chose, what you bet on, didn't correspond to what you deserved? There's no easy answer to this question, and it's precisely when there's no easy answer that everything comes to light at once. The moment when what was done behind your back truly comes to light is not gentle. For Libra, who has spent so much time keeping everything calibrated, the arrival of the truth is like light entering a completely dark room. It's not gradual. It doesn't give you time to prepare. Suddenly, everything is illuminated at once, and you can't choose what to see first. You see everything at once: what was done, by whom it was done, for how long it was happening while you pretended not to see, and above all, why you allowed it. For many people, this moment would be one of immediate anger. For Libra, it's different. The first thing that almost always appears isn't anger. It's a kind of silent astonishment. A pause, an instant in which the Libra mind, accustomed to processing everything from both sides, simply stands still. Because this time there aren't two sides, there's only what is. For Libra, This moment of sudden enlightenment is also a moment of counting. You involuntarily begin to count how long it lasted, how much you missed, how many times there were signs you let slip by. And this counting isn't guilt, although it might seem like it. It's the Libra mind doing what it always does, trying to redistribute the weight more fairly, trying to understand the exact proportion of what happened, trying, even in this moment of collapse, to find balance in the situation. But some situations lack balance. Some things simply don't have the two sides that Libra is used to finding. And recognizing this, recognizing that this time there's no way to redistribute the weight in a way that makes sense, is one of the most disorienting moments Libra can go through. Not because it's unbearable, but because it goes against something so central to Libra's identity that it seems to shake the entire structure. And then comes grief, perhaps the hardest of all, because it's not the loss of a specific person or a material object. It's the loss of a version of the world, the one in which you were protected because you were doing the right thing, the one in which your code of honor functioned as an automatic shield, the one in which what others did for you was equivalent to what you did for them. This version of the world no longer exists, and Libra needs to decide at this moment what to do with the pieces. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. The first reaction almost always comes before you even think about it. It's automatic. And for Libra, it's usually one of three things. The first, try to balance what cannot be balanced. Find an explanation that distributes responsibility in a way that no one comes out completely wrong, including you. Perhaps the other person was going through something difficult. Perhaps you failed at some point, which created space for this. Perhaps it was a misunderstanding that grew beyond what it should have. Libra is extraordinarily creative when it comes to constructing narratives that make the situation more palatable and more balanced than it really is. The second reaction, silence. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. The silence of someone who has so much to say that they can't find where to begin, and until they find the right entry point, the appropriate form, the opportune moment, they simply remain silent. This silence accumulates. It becomes heavier than the word that never came out. And sometimes it transforms into something permanent. Not because Libra wanted it that way, but because the moment to speak has passed and it seems too late to go back. The third, the elegant retreat. You distance yourself in such a well-constructed, discreet, and drama-free way that from the outside it seems like maturity. It seems like you've moved on, forgiven, and progressed, but inside, it's distance. It's the decision not to expose yourself anymore, not to get close enough for that to happen again. Dressed as forgiveness, it's actually a way to protect yourself without having to explain it to anyone, not even yourself. All three have one thing in common. None of them does what needs to be done. None of them says what needs to be said. And Libra knows this. It knows it while doing it. It knows it's choosing the path that hurts the least right now, that preserves the surface the most, that requires the least courage at this specific moment. But in the long run, each of these three responses prolongs precisely the imbalance you've been trying to avoid from the start. Why does Libra avoid the real answer? Because the real answer contains anger, and anger, for Libra, is the most dangerous territory there is. Not because Libra is weak, quite the opposite. When Libra finally lets the anger out, it is precise, articulate, impossible to ignore. But getting there means admitting that the balance has truly been broken, with no way out, no possibility of redistributing blame. It means renouncing the illusion that everything can still be resolved harmoniously. It means being, for a moment, completely unbalanced. And that is the thing Libra fears most in public, in private, and especially in front of themselves. But there is a fourth answer, and it's this one that changes everything. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. The fourth response is not a dramatic confrontation. It's not revenge born from a wounded heart. It's not karma you patiently wait to fall upon the one who acted behind your back. It's none of those things the world calls justice when it wants to console someone who has been betrayed. The fourth answer is an internal change, silent, precise, almost surgical in its operation, and it begins with a decision to stop projecting your own code of honor onto other people. Imagine this scene: a judge who has spent years trying to apply a law that exists only within him. An unwritten law, never published, never agreed upon with anyone, but which he applies with utmost seriousness and rigor as if it were universal. A law that dictates how people should treat one another, how they should honor what has been given, how they should act when no one is watching. He applies this law consistently, with integrity, with a self-imposed demand that never wavers. And he is disappointed time after time because others do not know this law. They never have. They have never read it. They have never signed this contract that clearly existed for him but was completely invisible to others. The judge keeps thinking the problem is that people are dishonest, careless, and incapable of reciprocity. But the real problem is that he has spent his entire life judging everyone by a code that was never published, never taught, never made explicit. True justice doesn't begin when the other is punished. True justice begins when the judge stops and realizes, I need to rewrite my criteria, not to lower the standard, not to accept what is unacceptable, not to pretend everything is all right when it isn't, but to stop being blinded by one's own excellence, to begin to see others for what they are truly capable of offering, not for what you would be capable of offering in their place. This is not resignation. It is not the defeat of someone who lowers their guard because they could no longer fight. It is lucidity. It is Libra finally using its scales to measure what is before it, not what should be. And this lucidity, when finally freed from projection, is one of the most precise and powerful forces that Libra possesses within itself. Because Libra without projection doesn't become someone distrustful. It becomes someone who sees, who feels the difference between what is genuine and what is merely an echo of what they themselves have placed there, who stops filling empty spaces with the best of themselves. And the real balance, not the artificial balance that Libra maintained out of fear of seeing what was wrong, the real balance begins to take shape. Not because the world has changed, because Libra has changed the way it reads the world. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. The answer that Libra usually fears, that clarity will lead to isolation, that seeing the world without the lens of projection will make it impossible to trust anyone. That answer does not hold true. The opposite is true. When Libra stops designing, stops completing, stops adjusting the scales to make the plates appear equal when they are not, what happens is not a hardening. It's a calibration, a technical precision review. Imagine a high-precision scale that has been used for years without maintenance. Over time, small inaccuracies accumulate. It still measures, but it measures with a deviation that it itself is unaware of. And when it undergoes servicing, when technicians calibrate each internal mechanism, it doesn't weigh differently in the sense of being heavier or lighter. It weighs with greater accuracy, with greater honesty, with greater fidelity to what is in front of it. This is what happens to Libra after going through what was done behind their back. You don't come out distrusting everyone. You come out with a sharper perception, more honest, more able to distinguish what is genuine from what is merely a reflection of what you expected to find. The justice that will be done is not about the other person. It never was. The justice that will be done is the justice you do for yourself by ceasing to be vulnerable through excessive reflection. By starting to read the world for what it is, with open eyes, with a calibrated scale, without ceasing to be who you are. What was done behind your back had a purpose, not in the sense that the world is fair and distributes deserved lessons, but in the sense that Libra only learns certain things when the balance it has built itself can no longer bear the weight of what was being ignored. The scale, after all, doesn't lie. It resists as long as it can, and when it gives way, it's not a failure, it's a sign. It's the moment when the precision you've always had, but never fully used on yourself, finally begins to work in your favor. You, who have always been better at judging the weight of things than anyone around you, are now learning to judge your own weight with the same honesty. And this is the justice that has been prepared for you since before you knew you needed it.